outside of my comfort zone of all my skill set. I was a music producer, and God took me by the hand. He led me. Because do you know how I got to this church? I produced the music for their conference. That's how I got here. He led me. I'm going to use what's comfortable and make you take a step. I'm just doing music for the church. Oh, y'all need a sound man? Oh, y'all need a music director? Oh, you need a youth pastor? He led me. He didn't give me no vision about the Transformation Towers and about the building while I was over here producing music. He had to lead me. Oh my God. Some of you, the vision you've been believing for is outside of your comfort zone. What did he ask me? He said, how did I get into the church?
How did you get into the church? You wanted to become a pastor?
I never wanted to become a pastor. Let's just go ahead and start that just like it is, man. I was born and raised in a house that really believed in faith. But I wilded out as a teenager and was in places and spaces that really had me in a dark place, man. And I just remembered the faith that I grew up with and the things that my mom would speak over me. And I saw all through my childhood, and it was like this religious thing. And at some moment in my life when I was going through relational problems and losing a lot, I went back to that faith and really started to dive deep in it, man. And the dark that was all around me became lighter. I just saw a little bit of light, man, and it started changing me. And I was a music producer, so I did stuff in music. And so what ended up happening is a church asked me to help them with their music. And it was like this gateway into this whole nother world. I was going for a paycheck, and it ended up changing my life and transforming the way that I thought and transforming the way that I saw people. And I started out as the sound man in this church, and I went from the sound man to working with the youth to working with the pastor, and I was the lead pastor of the church. So
hello everyone, it's your sister Roland, and all I need is a few minutes to discuss the video of Pastor Mike Todd preaching and him spitting in his hands and placing that spit in his little brother's face. So I knew of the first time I knew of Pastor Mike Todd is because one of my daughters used to watch his relationship videos when he used to be working with Switch Youth, and he would speak to the youth about relationships, giving them different advice. And then all of a sudden, he has his own church. And then this is the reason why I understand, especially when Pastor G. Craig says about he has a problem with people calling youth pastors, because sometimes you just need to work with the youth. You're just working with the youth. That doesn't mean that you're a pastor or you're called to be a pastor. And then even in the previous videos that you saw, he said that he never wanted to be a pastor. He was a music producer, and the church hired him to do sound. And then with the sound, they needed a youth pastor. And then with the youth pastor, then he went to being a pastor, but was never called. He never had a vision or anything like that, which I don't understand, because when God calls you, even if you look in the different people that were called in the Bible, even people that were called to be pastors now, you had something. You had maybe a vision. The person always felt that they would want to be a pastor. People would always tell them, "Hey, you look like a pastor. You're going to be a pastor." So it wasn't unfamiliar. You knew. You didn't know. You probably didn't know when. You probably didn't know how God was going to go about doing it. But most of the time, people who are called to be pastors, they have some type of revelation that they are going to be a pastor. So when he said that he that's not what he wanted to be, it was just opportunities that basically came to him, and then he took advantage of those. And this is the thing: power changes people. Power changes people. Whenever people have an opportunity to gain power, they would always take it, whether they're called or not. And this is why the Bible talk about in James 3 verses 1 to 2. It said, not many of you should become teachers, my brothers. And this is the ESV version. For you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. So people who are teaching the word of God, people who are even teaching, once you're a teacher, you will be judged with a greater strictness, because you're influencing people, and your influence can lead people astray or can lead people to God. And basically, you're supposed to, let's talk about in the Christian community, whatever you're teaching, people's supposed to see God in what you're preaching. And he used illustration in Mark 8 where Jesus, healed this man from his blindness as he spit in his eyes and laid hands on him. He also did this in John 9. He didn't spit in the guy's eyes, but he made clay. He made like a mud type with the spit and put it on the man's eyes, and he told him to go wash it in the pool of Siloam. But this time, he took him out of the city. They brought this blind man, and he took him out of the city and did this because even back in those times, because remember, Jesus was 100% man and he was 100% God. So he knew back in those times that would not have sit with many people, just like it doesn't sit with many people now, because to spit in somebody's face or to place it in somebody, that's disrespectful. Sometimes even when people spit next to you, that's even disrespectful. So that's why Jesus took him out, did it, and he told them never to tell nobody. People will eventually see that, oh, wasn't this guy blind before? But he sees. But Jesus already told him, don't tell anybody, because of how it was done. And we see when people are not called, how it transpires. Just look at the life of Saul. Saul was chosen by the people. Yeah, God allowed it to happen but God told the people he was their king. But no, they didn't want that. They wanted an actual king. So God gave them what they wanted. And then Saul was chosen. And you see what happened to Saul. Saul spent 40 years governing the people of Israel. He governed 2 years with the Spirit of the Lord with him. And the rest of the 38 years, he was on a rampage. He was doing a lot of stuff, and there's even things that he did. It was like years down the line, the people of Israel paid for what he said, what he did, all the decisions that he made. Because why? He was not being led by the Spirit of God, but because he was never in his place. That was not his place to be king. And I remember when we were watching this, one of my daughters was like, "Mommy, that's not spit, that's snot." And I was like, that is true. Because spit has a different consistency than snot. Spit is maybe a little lighter, have the little bubbles, but snot is different. Snot has a thicker consistency, depending on how it is. Especially if you're sick, you produce a thicker, it might be, disgusting you. That's why I didn't play the actual video. But, snot has a different consistency. And he essentially didn't use spit. He used snot in the man's face. Because if you were able to watch the video and stomach that man's face, it was dripping on the man's face. And then I was like, And you could have finished, did that. and then let the man go on his way, say, this is what I wanted to show. But you let that man stand there. Well, you let your brother stand there so everybody could see. And the way the snot, not spit, and you could see the thickness was dripping on his the brother's face. And then I was like, that's not right, because it actually quintessentially shows, if you have a spiritual eye, to see what this man is struggling with, what this man watch. To have that snot dripping on his face, there's an act that is done, that people do this in certain movies. If you understand what I want to say, you understand. If you don't, it wasn't meant for you to understand. But it's certain particular movies that are done. That's what they do to the person's face. And that's what I saw. So I didn't see Jesus. I didn't see a miracle. I didn't see God. I see foolishness. It was perversion. And what's so sad, many people were condoning this. People were saying, oh, yeah, it's thing, but I get it. Only a few people was like, this is not right. But because this is what happens when you worship a man. So no matter what the person do, you're gonna worship them. You're not gonna see anything wrong with what they did. And that was like, oh my goodness. And I would have respected it more if it was a blind man. You actually took a blind man, because if you wanted to reenact what Jesus did, take a blind man, and then you did that, and then the blind man saw again. God would have been glorified in that. Many people would have been saved because you reenacted something that Jesus did, and the miracle came forth, because he said, signs, miracles, and wonders will follow us who believe in his name. We will heal the sick. We'll cast out demons. He said that. But this, I don't see God in this. Yes, he said a whole lot, and he said a whole lot of stuff. We're going to invade religion. We're going to invade Hollywood. We. But God told you, you cannot do anything. It's only by his. It's not by power nor by might, but by my spirit, says the Lord. So a lot of things it's not we, it's not you, it's not I. It's by God's spirit that is going to be done. So, and this is why, not only if you so-called love this man, I urge you not only pray for this man, especially people who in his inner circle, but you have to keep them accountable, because he did not. It is him doing this. He didn't just automatically did it. It started with little things that he was saying, little things that he was doing, subliminal things that he was doing. And it probably didn't sit with some people, but nobody said anything. And sometimes, even when we want to say something, sometimes we talk ourselves out. We dismiss ourselves. What do I know? He's a pastor. That's probably the devil in my head. And we don't say anything. And then this is what happens, because nobody's holding. Yes, you're supposed to pray for your pastors and leaders, but somebody needs to hold them accountable. Oh, you said something the other day. Can you give me more explanation? Or it didn't sit well with me. Call them out, because that's what's going to keep them. Because we don't all see our blind spots. It's people that's going to point it out for us. And then if you love the person, you tell them the good when they do good, and you tell them when they do bad, so they can keep on doing what they need to do. And many people were saying, why would the brother let him do that to him? Of course, he most likely probably had a conversation with him and told him, this is what was going to happen. But why would you stand there and do that and do that? Why would you let that have that happen to you? But one thing what I've noticed is sometimes certain leaders, they, especially people that they can easily manipulate, if they can't easily manipulate you, they shun you, they mark you, they don't even mess with you. But people who they know they can easily manipulate, people who they know are enamored by them, they make themselves in a way indispensable to those people. They do all kind of stuff for them, or the person was sick and maybe they prayed for them, or they make themselves in a way indispensable where the person is indebted to them. So this person is willing to do anything for this leader, for this pastor, for this prophet, for the prophetess. And if this person is not really led by the Spirit of God, they can use that to their advantage. And I've seen this happens a lot. That's why you have to be very careful if you are in a position of leadership where you have 1, 2, 3, 10, 5,000, 10,000 people under you. When you have said something that has transformed their life, they didn't see a certain thing this way, you opened up their mind, they weren't able to work and you provided them a job, those people feel indebted to you and they're willing to do anything for you. But you need to know there's a thin line. There's a thin line that you could turn and use that person being indebted to you in the wrong way that does not glorify the Lord Jesus Christ. And I did hear where he gave the word of the year, which is holy is here. But after doing all of that, is that really holy? Is that really holy? And then what's so sad, this is just the beginning. We're going to see a lot of things. A lot of people going to do a lot of things. And some of them, most of them, is not of God. Some of them is just so they could get popular. So they could be bumping. Because God said in his word that if we draw all men to him, he will be lifted up. Jesus is supposed to be lifted up, not us. Yes, of course, when you're doing God's work, you get some type of fame, notoriety, popularity, but you need to know, hey, I need to give that to God. If it wasn't for God, nobody would ever know me. Nobody would ever. So I need to always stay in right standing with God. And sometimes that's what we lose. We lose that, the sight of that. It's not about you. It's about God. And when you are Christ, when you are Christian, you are Christ-like. That means you do what Christ did. You do the things that Christ did. So even if you want to do that illustration, Christ took the man out of town. Nobody was there. Nobody was, even if maybe the disciples was there, but there was not a crowd, because something like that is humiliating. So to be a Christian is to be Christ-like. Was this Christ-like? And this is the epitome of power changing people, because even when you look at people who have the power to give you more sources, sometimes they might have a bad day and they choose not to give you anything, or they don't like you and then they're not going to give you more sources. Even that changes people. So power, imagine the power that this man, the influence that he has, power changes people 100%. And to wrap up, because I didn't know it was going to go on this long, but he did mention that he grew up in a faith house. He grew up in a faith household. When I always talk to people, I always tell people I grew up in a Christian household to make it a distinction. My children will always say, oh, we grew up as Christians. We are growing up as Christians. Faith can mean anything. Faith could be faith in Muslim, being a Muslim, being a Buddhist. Faith could even mean you have faith in mayonnaise. We don't know what that faith means. But when you say Christian, we know, oh yeah, Christian, or then he grew up in church. He grew up reading the Bible. He grew up thinking. But I grew up in a faith household. So even by some of the things that he said by his own words, it was not sitting. And this the Breakfast Club interview, that was like a year ago. I guess he had just published his book, and then he was saying this. So that's what I'm saying. It didn't just him doing this. It didn't just start here. He was doing different things. He was saying different things, and people was not catching it, or people caught it and then dismissed themselves, and nobody held them accountable. And this is what is going on. And unfortunately, it's going to happen more, and it's going to leave a bad taste in many people's mouth. But it's not only to pray for the person. We have to keep people accountable. We have to keep people who say they represent God. Even if you don't see, when you represent the police department, you represent the school board, if you do things that are not right, they held you accountable. They're going to hold you accountable. And sometimes that accountability, you have to lose your job. You have to be demoted. Why we can't hold people accountable in the church? You could just do whatever you want, say whatever you want. Nobody can be held accountable. Oh, come on. Don't you talk about him. Don't you taste this. But you can't do those stuff as a lawyer. Certain standards that you have to follow. If not, you're going to lose your license. But we can do whatever we want in the church, and nobody can say nothing. So that's all I had to say on this situation. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.